You're at Thanksgiving dinner. Your uncle just said something that made your blood boil. Your heart starts racing, your face gets hot, and suddenly you're not eating turkey anymore. You're calculating, do I say something? Do I call him out right here in front of everyone? Do I let go? And if I let it go, does that make me complicit? If you've ever been in that moment, that exact moment where someone's opinion feels like a personal attack, and all you want to do is correct them, educate them, call them out, then this episode, my friends, is for you. Because here's what I've realized about myself and all of this. I used to think that that fire I felt meant I had to do something or I had to say something, that staying silent was the same as agreeing, that if I didn't police other people's opinions, I was part of the problem. But all that moral policing, it wasn't helping anyone, it was just exhausting me. And honestly, it was exhausting everyone around me too. So, today we're going to talk about two things. First, why you feel that urge to call everyone out, what's actually happening beneath the surface when someone's opinion feels threatening. And second, what to actually do with that fire, because I'm going to give you 6 real tools you can use the next time your blood starts boiling. Not theory, not philosophy you can't apply. Actual tools for actual moments like this, like Thanksgiving dinner, like a group chat, like whenever someone says something that makes you want to scream. Hey, everybody, and very quickly back, welcome to Get In. You Are Driving, where life is tough, but you are tougher. And today and every day, why we do this pod is because the thing I want you to remember is that you are in the driver's seat. Other people's opinions, they are passengers in their own cars. They can drive alongside you, but they don't get to control your steering wheel. They don't get to knock you off course. And by the end of this episode, you're going to know exactly how to stay grounded, stay curious, and stay in control, even when everything in you wants to fight. The first part is going to be why this feels like a threat. All right, I always like to start with why, because if you don't understand what's actually happening when someone's opinion makes you want to like fight, I don't think you can really change how you respond. And this is what I have learned. It's not actually about them, it's very much so about you. So, have you ever noticed how your body reacts when someone touches a wound? Like physically, you actually flinch, right? It's automatic. You don't think about it. Your body just protects the vulnerable spot. That's exactly what happens, in my opinion, in your mind when someone challenges something you believe. Again, just as the body flinches when a wound is touched, the mind flinches when it encounters an idea that contradicts its foundations. That instinctive tightening, that sudden defense, that need to say something back. It's not really about the other person, like I just said. It's about the delicate architecture of your world that you've built inside yourself and how they are somehow throwing a sledgehammer onto it. I remember feeling this many times very intensely when I moved to Europe at 22. For context, I left Alabama. That's where I grew up. My family's all Italian though, but I was born and raised there. And then all of a sudden I moved to Madrid. I moved to a city. I moved to places where people had very different opinions, me, very different upbringings. And I was definitely around people that had a very different moral language and just language all in general. And a lot of these ideas to me felt absurd. And more importantly, and what I want to get to is they felt wrong. And I found myself flinching many times inwardly because, again, my moral code, the one I had known for 22 years, was being confronted every single day. And people would say things like so casually about politics, religion, like how to live, marriage. And I remember I would just feel this like tightness, this like need to defend, this urge to say, like, no, that's not how it is. But what I realized after like a year or so is that it wasn't really about what they were saying. It was about the fact that my foundation, the one I had always known, was starting to shake. So, in my opinion, here's what's really happening when someone challenges your worldview. It's not just an idea being questioned, it's your identity. So, again, it's not just an idea being questioned, it's your identity. It's your lineage, it's your ancestors, it's your upbringing, it's your parents, it's the 22, it's the 30 years or however long or old you are that you've spent building this foundation. And it's your meaning, it's your purpose. And that's why it feels so personal, because it actually is personal. And when someone says something that contradicts what you believe, it's like they're saying, everything you were taught might be wrong. The people who raised you might be wrong. The world you thought was solid might not be. And of course, that's terrifying. So, of course, you feel like you have to defend it. Of course, you feel like you have to call them out because if they're right, then what does that mean about you? If the ground you've been standing on your whole life isn't as solid as you thought, where do you stand? So here's the thing, until you go somewhere you've never been and until you sit across people who think completely differently than you, I don't think your beliefs are constantly being challenged. I think they're constantly being affirmed because your family believes it. Let's say your church believes it, your school, your friends, right? Your whole culture, your whole world around you. You don't question it. And why would you? Like, think about it. If everyone around you says, this is just how the world works, you believe that's just how the world works. Like, you don't wake up one day and think, oh, let me examine everything that I've been told my whole life. Is it true? Is it true? Like, right? You just live in it. It becomes a water you swim in, so to speak. And for me personally, I actually was not very sheltered. Like, my family background is all over the place. My grandparents on both sides, mom and dad, were Italian. And on my dad's side, they went to Philadelphia. On my mom's side, they went to Venezuela. I've been to many different countries, seen many different cultures, like living in Madrid now. But I was born and raised in Alabama. And if you know anything about the South of the US, you probably, I don't need to tell you what worldview they have, right? And of course, like, that formed me. It became a part of me. I mean, how could it not? But what I realized is when I started having real conversations with people who saw the world in a completely different way, all I really had to back up my beliefs was conviction, a feeling. I felt strongly that I was right. I felt like my worldview made sense. I felt certain. Now, let me be clear. Feelings are valid. They're real data about what matters to you. They tell you what you care about, what your values are, and what you're willing to stand for. But this is what I've had to learn about emotions the hard way. When it comes to these really complex topics like morality, politics, how we should live together as a society. Feelings alone aren't enough to convince someone who sees the world differently than you do because, well, they have feelings too, and they're strong. They're probably just as intense as yours. So if we're both just standing there with our feelings saying, but I feel like I'm right, well, we're at a stalemate. Nobody's learning, nobody's growing, nobody's actually engaging with the substance of what we believe. And when you're someone who prides themselves on like being logical, I know I do, I think that hits really hard because it means, well, I have some work to do. I have to be able to articulate why I believe what I believe beyond just, well, it feels right to me and this is how it is. I have to now examine facts, context, implications. I have to be willing to say, okay, what evidence do I actually have for this? And sometimes you don't have any evidence. And the truth is that there are millions of forces shaping who we become: family, culture, religion, geography, history, language, all of it. So, of course, two people will never see the world exactly in the same way. We might overlap on some things, disagree entirely on others, and hold our own private convictions in between. And it took me time, but I realized that this is not a bad thing. This is just being human. But the problem is, most of us are not taught how to live in the gray. We're taught about black and white, right and wrong, good and evil, us and them. Somehow, whether we realize it or not, we make most topics moral topics. Think about it. We take issues that are complex, nuanced, full of context, and we turn them into moral tests. It's not just, I disagree with you on this policy. It becomes, if you believe that, you're a bad person. It's not, we see this differently. It becomes, you're on the wrong side, you're evil, you're the enemy. And this has become increasingly true in the last few years all around at least Western society. I'm not going to sit here and speak for the Japanese. So I know that I used to see the world as very black and white. Maybe even, I'm sure there's some ways that I still do and I need to correct. But life after moving to Madrid was slowly introducing me to many new shades of gray that I didn't know existed. And there were layers of nuance, context, complexity, contradictions, things that make the world less obvious and strangely more human. And I'm going to be honest with you, I have become very familiar with many different shades of gray, and I'm kind of getting to a point where I like the gray because the gray is what's challenged me. The gray made me more open to hearing other sides of the story. The gray exposed the flaws and the gaps in my ways of seeing the world, but the gray also felt very threatening, and sometimes it still very much so does because, yeah, the gray threatens our worldview, but I also think it makes us more colorful, more open, more humble. It reminds of us us of how small we truly are. Because the truth is, there's always going to be so much more that we don't know than what we do know. And knowing that, like really knowing that, I think can change how you see a lot of things. So when someone challenges what you believe, when your blood starts to boil, when you feel that urge to call them out, what you're really feeling is the discomfort of the gray, the discomfort of realizing you might not have all the answers, the discomfort of your foundation shaking just a little bit. And where it gets interesting is because a lot of us, and I think a lot of people in my generation, Gen Z, we were kind of raised and told, like, speak up, use your voice, be yourself, especially in the States. And we have come to believe that silence is complicity. So when we feel threatened, when something brushes up against what we believe, we do the only thing we know how to do. We call people out. But here's the question I had to ask myself, and the question I want you to sit with is calling people out actually helping, or is it just making us feel righteous? Because there's a huge difference between critical thinking and moral policing, and that's what we're going to talk about next. So, the next part is what we do when we feel threatened. All right, so we understand why other people's opinions feel threatening. Your foundation is shaking, your identity feels questioned. Everything you thought was everything you thought was certain suddenly seems to have cracks. So, what do we do when we feel that way? Well, a few days ago, I came across a really great podcast episode on wild geese, and it was one of those moments where I feel like she answered a question that I had been carrying around for a while. And she was talking about critical thinking versus moral policing. So these are terms, I'm not sure if she coined them, but I did get my information from her pod, and I will be referencing her in my own words. And it was like someone turned on a light in a room that I'd been stumbling around in, like hearing her say this. So again, I'm going to paraphrase. She said, people crave deep thinking in this era, but most of what we call critical thinking is actually moral policing. And when I heard that, I knew she was onto something, and a lot clicked for me. Something I knew but could never explain with words was just said. So I'm going to break down the difference, and this is in her words. Critical thinking is exploring content, asking questions, examining implications, holding multiple perspectives at the same time, understanding before reacting. It's curiosity driven, and it's about getting closer to the truth, even if that truth is uncomfortable. Whereas moral policing is jumping to label something as good or bad, hunting for mistakes, tone policing, not just what someone said, but how they said it, reading micro expressions, looking for signs where they are one of the bad ones, and then punishing the wrong idea or the wrong person, often publicly. And we see this a lot, right? Especially with social media. And here's the thing, moral policing feels like critical thinking. It feels like you're examining something closely, like you're holding people accountable, but you're really not, because you're mostly investigating only to confirm guilt. You're asking questions, but more so to trap them to be right. You're analyzing tone, but only to find a reason to dismiss them. Like none of this has anything to do with curiosity or trying to understand the truth. She said that it has really everything to do with control. So here's what happens, and I want you to pay attention because you've probably done this. I know I have. You meet someone, maybe at a family dinner, maybe online, maybe in a conversation with a friend, whatever, at an encounter, and within 10 seconds, they say something that, let's say, brushes up against your moral worldview. There's that moment of threat. And suddenly, without even realizing it, we switch into binary mode, which is smart or ignorant, good or bad, us or them, villain or hero. And from there, the pattern unfolds almost automatically. It's like a script your brain runs without asking for permission. Because again, first you investigate, but you're not really looking for understanding. Again, you're looking for evidence to confirm what you've already decided about them. Then you speculate their motives. All of a sudden, you're God. You know their intentions. Like you don't actually know what they believe, why, but you fill in the blanks. Like, oh, well, they must be selfish. Oh, they must only care about money. Oh, they must be ignorant, or they must have grown up poor. Like they must not care. Like whatever it may be. Then you police their tone, not just, again, what they said, but how they said it. Did they say it condescendingly? Did they say it with arrogance? Did they say it defensively? Then again, like I said before, you're assigning intent without evidence. Like, oh, they're trying to hurt people. They want to sound smart. They're just being contradictory. And then finally, you punish through argument, humiliation, moral condemnation, maybe surveillance, watching everything they say, waiting for them to slip up. This happens so much on YouTube reaction videos. Sometimes, not a lot, but sometimes like I watch those reaction videos, and the way these YouTubers and just content creators like have screenshots of what creators have said, screen recordings, and then do this like huge debunk on it. half the time when they do this, I'm thinking, do you not have something like better to do? Like, I also don't want to be judging, but that's just content that I've never understood that because I mean, one, it's a skill, like good for you, but wow. Wow. It just, wow. You're like really watching this person. Anyways. And I think the heartbreaking part is that most of this feels righteous. People, and including myself, I think they're telling themselves that they're defending goodness, justice, truth, and honestly, maybe even God. But let's be honest, a lot of times it's just pride. And I get it, I do, because when you feel a fire, when you care about something, and when you feel like something is wrong, like of course you want to say something. Of course you want to correct it because for you it's good. But if you think like if I don't speak up, I'm part of the problem. If I stay silent, I'm complicit. I think that's fear, especially in the world we're living in right now where it feels like everything is on fire and everyone's being told, again, use your voice, speak up, don't be silent. But here's what moral policing actually does in practice. In practice, it creates in groups and out groups. It fosters tribalism. It flattens humans into symbols. You're not a whole person anymore. You're just the person who believes that wrong thing. It makes dialogue impossible because once someone's been labeled as bad, why would you want to listen to them? It turns difference into accusation. And I think, worst of all, it wastes energy that could be used for building something better. Somehow, without fully realizing it, we start trading authenticity for safety and truth for belonging. And I think a lot of this goes back to what I said about the beginning of when you're confronted with ideas that go against everything you've known, it's scary. Like, it takes courage to say, wow, maybe I was wrong. Like, maybe everything I knew wasn't the whole picture. So, instead of sitting with that discomfort, we want to control it and we try to fix other people so that we don't have to look internally and question ourselves. And I want to talk specifically to my generation for a second, Gen Z, or I don't know, sometimes I say I'm a zillennial. But I think this is something we're caught up in very specifically. And again, I think a lot of it comes to we're raised and told, be you, speak up. We really have learned and internalized that silence is complicity. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Like, I think our instinct is that we care and we want to make the world better, and that's good. But I think what's happened is that social media trained us to perform morality publicly and not privately. And we learned that the way to show you care is to post about it, to call people out, to make sure everyone knows you're on the right side. Except most of us, again, we don't question ourselves and look within. We get too busy making it about everyone else. And then, yeah, we don't have anything to do with the problem. Like, we're perfect. It's what do you mean? It's you. And to add to that, we feel things, I think, very intensely, maybe than the generations before us. Like, we have access to every tragedy, every injustice, every crisis happening in the world in real time. And a lot of us really care about it because most people don't like to see human suffering. It makes us uncomfortable. It makes us sad. But all we've been taught to do with, I think, this fire inside of us is call people out. That's the tool we were given. That's the script we know. And someone says something wrong, again, call them out. Someone doesn't post about the issue, call them out. Someone has a take you disagree on, call them out. And if we're being honest, it's, I think, exhausting and, in my opinion, getting us nowhere for you and for everyone around you. And I will really die on this hill that I think a lot of it is righteousness. You're saying all the right things. You're making sure your moral standing is visible. But are you actually living with integrity? Are you genuinely listening to people? Are you building anything or are you just policing? And I say this with compassion because, like, I've been there. I think we all have. I've done this. I know what it feels like to think that if you don't like say something or maybe publicly condemn, like you're complicit. I know the fear of being seen as maybe you're not activist enough, maybe you're not on the right side enough. But I think what I've learned is that real conviction doesn't always need an audience. And performing care publicly while policing others privately, I don't think is the same. Is Performing care publicly while policing others privately is not the same as living with integrity to me. And you don't have to carry every single battle on your shoulders. So if you're sitting here thinking, well, I get it, I do this, I feel this, what am I supposed to do instead if I don't call people out? What do I do with like these feelings? That's exactly what we're going to talk about next because you don't have to choose between caring deeply and exhausting yourself. You don't have to choose between having convictions and staying curious. I really think you can hold both, but it does require a shift, and that shift starts with something and understanding that foundations that never get tested don't get stronger, they only get fragile. Okay, one more thing to be clear. I want to talk just a little bit about silence versus complicity. And I know some of you might be thinking, but what about real injustice? Like, what about when silence actually is complicity? And I do think that's a real question that deserves the best real answer I can give you. So, this is what I think the difference is. Strategic silence is when you recognize that calling your uncle out at Thanksgiving dinner isn't going to change his mind. It's not going to help anyone, and it's only going to create more division in the moment and probably with your family. So, you choose not to engage in that moment in that way. Whereas complicitly is when you see harm happening, real active harm, you actually have the power to intervene and change something, but you choose comfort over courage. That's what it means to me. So, strategic silence is not arguing with your uncle about politics at dinner, and complicity is watching someone being bullied, you having the power to do something, and walking away. Strategic silence is choosing not to post about every single issue on social media, whereas complicity is staying silent when you witness discrimination in your workplace because speaking up makes you uncomfortable. And something that I learned and need to say, especially to my generation, is most of the people who are really into moral policing online, the ones calling everyone out on social media, the ones performing their righteousness for an audience, very few of them are actually standing up for what they believe in the places where there are real consequences in it for them. Because I think we all know it's easy to call someone out on Twitter with your anonymous account. You can hide behind the screen. You can just perform for your followers. Like, there really isn't a risk in that. But how many of those same people are speaking up in their workplace when they witness actual harm? How many are having uncomfortable conversations with their actual family members face to face? How many are putting themselves on the line in situations where there might be real consequences like losing a job? Because what I believe is that if you're so fired up about what you believe in, but then you go around cowardly when facing the real consequences of standing up for it, if you're not willing to put yourself on the line when it actually matters, you have no business telling other people what to do. I'm sorry, you just don't. If you're only brave online but silent when it could actually cost you something, I don't think that's conviction. I think it's performance. I'm saying this with love because, again, I've had to ask myself these same questions, but am I willing to stand up for what I believe in when it's uncomfortable, when there might be real consequences in it for me, when I'm not performing for an audience? Or am I only brave when it's safe and it's what everyone else is doing? I hope you can see the difference. So, one is about choosing, I think, your battles wisely, and the other is about avoiding responsibility when it matters. So, what I want you to hear is you're allowed to step back from exhausting, unproductive arguments on social media. That's not complicitly, I can't say this word, complicity. I think it's wisdom. But you're also responsible, I think, speaking up for and using your voice when you could actually make a difference and intervene in something. When staying silent would allow real harm to continue, especially in the places where there are real consequences for you. Ask yourself, if I stay silent here, does it allow harm to continue, or does it just mean I'm not engaging in a pointless argument? And also ask, am I willing to stand up for this belief in the places where it actually costs me something, or am I only brave online? I think that's how you know the difference. And most of the time, the Thanksgiving dinner argument, the social media debates, those fall into the second category. It's not complicity, it's to let them go, it's strategic. But the workplace discrimination, something in your community, something happening at the gym, the real harm happening in front of you, that's when you need to find your courage. That's when silent would be complicity. Alrighty, let's get into the third part, which is the shift and staying in the driver's seat. So, we've talked about why other people's opinions feel threatening, and we've talked about what we do when we feel that way, and then the moral policing trap that we tend to fall into. But now I want to talk about this shift because here's what I want you to understand. You're not broken or wrong for feeling this way. And you're also not stuck in this pattern forever. There's other ways, and I think it starts with changing how you think about what's happening when your foundation shakes. So, again, grew up in Alabama. And in Alabama, if there's one thing we know, it's hurricanes because I'm from the south of Alabama, basically on the border of Florida. And we know what it's like when the winds pick up and the rain starts coming sideways and you're sitting there wondering if your house is going to hold up because it's Hurricane Ivan. Literally, this was my experience. And again, I've seen what happens when a foundation like actually gives out. It's insane. And when the structure just can't take the pressure anymore. But here's the thing. You don't just leave the wreckage. You always rebuild. You always lay a new foundation and you can always make things stronger. Like, we know this. And that's what I think I've realized about beliefs, worldviews, and the foundations we build inside ourselves. Because again, a lot of this is your foundation internally, and foundations that never get tested, they don't get strong. I think they're actually much more fragile. But when we confront the craps, when we confront the cracks, that doesn't mean the house has to fully collapse. Sometimes it means we finally reinforce it. Sometimes the rebuild is what makes it more ours than our society or our culture or our mom or our dad, because I know that I've discovered that when someone challenged what I believed and my foundation started to shake, it wasn't the end. It was actually the beginning of me owning what I believe for the first time and growing into this concept of, I want to say it's called individuating. My mentor tells me this. I might have gotten the word wrong. And again, not just inheriting these beliefs, not just performing them, but choosing them. So here's the question I had to ask myself, and the one I want you to sit with. Do you have convictions? And more importantly, if you do, have you chosen them? Or were they handed to you, absorbed without noticing, performed out of fear, obligation, duty, because you just wanted to fit in? Again, were they performed out of maybe moral virtue signaling or because you wanted to be seen as righteous? Because sometimes I think what we call conviction is just rigidity, and it's an emotional reaction we have decorated as principle. It's an inherited belief we never actually chose. We just, again, we accepted it because of the world around us. Everyone just believed it too. And look, some convictions are very personal. I don't think they need to be justified to anyone. Like what you believe about how you live your life, what matters to you, what you value, I believe that's yours. But other convictions, the one that affect how people are treated by you, how we move through our world together, how we engage with those who see things differently, I think those convictions require more than just your feeling that you're right. Like there has to be some reasoning behind them, like honesty, courage, truth, the willingness to say, okay, I believe this because, and actually have a good answer for that. So I think it matters. Again, it really matters to know why you believe what you believe, where it came from, what it's built on, whether it's truly yours. Because what makes you an individual, and again, I think that process is called individuating, not just a product of your environment, your culture, your time, or your tribe, is when you can hold your own convictions, the values that shape how you choose to live without needing to force them onto other people. You can live by what you believe is right for you and still honor that others are doing maybe something different. You can coexist. Or at least that's what I want to believe. I mean, I really want to believe I really want to believe this. Um, though I'll be honest with you, when I feel threatened, it still happens. It will probably always happen. When something brushes up against the core of what I hold dear, that ideal becomes harder to live by because, yeah, it's threatening when somebody thinks something differently. And to be honest, I'm still trying to figure a lot of this out. My podcast really is me thinking out loud and growing from day to day. I might have a totally different opinion on this in a year. Again, I'm thinking through this now because these are complex things. Like life is complex. And I think many of you might be asking the same questions I am. And it becomes less about needing to win or prove or defend. And I really think more about staying curious and dedicated to truth. So hold your convictions, but please let curiosity soften certainty, not erase it, soften it. Because the world, I'm sorry, but it's always going to be gray. We'll never have the whole picture. There will always be mystery. We may never know fully who is right. Welcome to life. But I do think we can know whether we're living with integrity, not in isolation, but through relationships, through philosophy. I even think through religion. I think religion has a good purpose to play in our world, if that's part of your life, through the values that we choose to uphold in our families, our culture, our society, and through the way our actions affect others. Integrity is not something we feel only on the inside. I really think it's something that shows itself in the world around us. And remember what I said earlier, that feelings I do think are valid, but when it comes to these really complex issues about, again, how we should live together, what kind of society we want to build, our own convictions alone, I do not think are enough, because here's how we actually know, I think, if we have integrity. It's reflected back to us in the quality of our relationships, in whether our convictions hold up under honest questioning, and whether our lives create harm or allow others to flourish. we can't just go by our own convictions, by our own feelings about what's right all the time because we don't live in isolation. Like, I'm not the only person living on this planet. We live with people, with families and communities and society. And I think the best way we know who we are, the best way we know if we're actually having integrity is when that's tested against the good of society. Again, against how we treat the people around us, against whether we're building something or just tearing things down. And essentially, I don't think you can be the only judge of whether you're right because your convictions have to stand up to the real world test of, but do they help people? Do they build community? Or are they just making you feel righteous? Do they bring division? And it takes a willingness to really look at not just how we feel about our convictions, but what they do in the world. And then to keep adjusting them with humility and truth when we see something in ourselves that probably needs to change. So I want you to hold your convictions, but I want you to choose them, examine them, and make sure they're actually yours. And let the world be wide and allow yourself to be changed when it's warranted. Listen, wonder, consider, question, trust yourself, be an individual. But also, and this is where we're going to go next, know when to pause, know what's yours to carry, know how to channel that fire into something productive instead of just destructive. Because understanding why you feel threatened is one thing, but knowing what to do when your blood starts boiling, that's what keeps you in the driver's seat. And that's exactly what we're going to get into now. All right, so now we're to the part about what to actually do about this. So we understand why we feel threatened. We understand this pattern of moral policing. And actually, I wrote a little bit about the history of this, which is in my Substack because I wrote a Substack that went along with this. But actually, I made the Substack first, and then from my writing, I then make them pods. And I actually go into the history too. So if you're interested in that, yeah, check out my Substack. And then I talked about why integrity matters more than just feeling righteous. But again, maybe you're sitting there thinking, at least I know when I listen to podcasts, I'm like, okay, but I want to know what to actually do. I want to put this into practice. So you're at Thanksgiving dinner. Your uncle just said something that made your blood boil. You feel the fire rising. You want to say something. You should say something. But isn't it complicity to be silent? I don't think so. I think this is what you actually do. And I'm going to give you tools. Not theory, again, not philosophy, but tools. And the first one, which I think is the most important, is pausing and distinguishing reaction from response. So, in the moment when you feel triggered, when your heart starts racing, again, when your face gets hot, and when you feel that urge to just pounce, I want you to pause and take a breath first and ask yourself, am I reacting to this with curiosity or with control? What am I actually protecting right now? Am I protecting my truth or my identity? Do I care more about actually talking or do I care about being right? If I speak, is it to engage or to punish? Here's what I think the difference is between reaction and response. So, reaction is very automatic, it's defensive, and it's usually driven by the need to control the situation and to win. Whereas response is intentional, it's curious, it's driven by the desire to understand or to want to genuinely change something. And here's what I think we all need to hear: you don't have to respond at the moment. You're allowed to pause, you're allowed to gather your thoughts. Your silence isn't complicity, it's you thinking in that brain of yours. Because if you're only reacting from defensiveness, from a need of control, you're not really staying in the driver's seat. I think you're letting their opinion hijack you and your steering wheel. So the pause is how you stay in control. Number two, ask, what's mine to carry? This is something I've learned, I think, actually, luckily, because I kind of knew this intuitively. I didn't super learn it the hard way, but I think other people have, because I, for some reason, have always just tended to be scared of what I saw other people's outcomes be. So that made me not want to try it. Anyways, but I think a lot of people learn the hard way that not every battle is yours to fight. We have the expression in English called pick your battles wisely. And I really believe in that. And I think these days people want to fight every fight and win every battle. And I think that's a bit ridiculous. And I know that might be hard to hear. Again, especially if you've really thought that silence is complicity. And listen, maybe you still think silence is complicity. I'm not here to change your mind. I'm here to have you think and hear my thoughts. But I always say on my podcast, think for yourself. But I don't think not speaking up makes you a part of the problem. I think this is what the truth is. I think that you can care about something without taking responsibility for fixing it. Because after all, we are finite with only our own perspective, our own lives that we already have, all our own troubles and burdens to carry. We can't save the world. We can't take on everything. So, when you feel that fire, ask yourself, is this issue something I have genuine stake in, or am I just performing outrage? Do I have the emotional capacity for this conversation right now? Will engaging in this moment actually change anything, or will it just create more conflict? Is this my conviction, or am I parroting what I think I'm supposed to believe? You can be against injustice without being the moral police of your family gatherings. And I think you can care deeply about issues without carrying every single one on your shoulder. And here's the thing, I think choosing your battles intentionally is not the same as not caring. It's deciding where your energy goes, and it's staying in the driver's seat, and it's recognizing that there are other drivers on this route with you. You don't have to take every exit. You don't have to stop at every sign of trouble. So give yourself permission to stop and think, because again, not everything is yours to carry. Tool number 3. You have 4 options for channeling the fire. All right, so you've paused, you've asked what's yours to carry, and you've decided, yeah, I actually do need to do something with what I'm feeling. Great. I think these are the best 4 options. A, have one real conversation, but not a performance. So instead of calling him out in front of everyone at the dinner table, pull him aside later. Make it private, make it real, make it a conversation, because that gives people their dignity. If you were to attack him and everybody hear that, all that would have done to this uncle is put him in attack mode and defense mode. There's no way anything genuine would have come out from this. And this is speaking about every single human being on the planet. If we're already feeling judged and cornered, we're going to get defensive like a dog. So you need to start with curiosity. Say something like, I'm curious why you see it that way. Can you help me understand? And then you listen. You sit there and you listen. And maybe you'll just end up listening. And then if they make a window open for you, then you can share what you think without demanding. But this is how I see it. I'm going to yell at you in front of everybody, because this puts you in a position of not trying to win and trying to understand and be understood. And I think this is what's wild. When you approach it like this, people actually listen because, again, they don't feel attacked. They don't feel like they have to defend themselves. You chose to have a conversation with them and be dignified about it. I'm not saying this will always work. Some people are just very difficult, but most of the time I think it does. And at least you tried to engage like a human. All right, option B, channel it into action. Say you cannot talk to the family member or person due to them just not having the capacity. Well, if you're super fired up about it and you really care about whatever this issue is, ask yourself, what can you actually do about it? Not just post about it, not just talk about it, not just get upset with your family members. Like, what can you do? What could you build? If you're mad about climate change comments, join an environmental group, volunteer, organize, community cleanup. If you're fired up about social justice, find an organization doing the work and support them. Show up, contribute. Put your energy into actual solutions, not surveillance. Because again, here's the truth. Calling your uncle out at Thanksgiving might feel great, might make you feel great, might make you feel righteous, but it's not really going to change much. Action is what changes things. Building things are what changes things. So ask yourself, am I using this fire to create something or just to destroy someone's reputation? All right, option C, write it out. You need to know why you feel the way you feel, because there's always a reason. And I've learned that topics that would make me get super defensive, there was a lot I had to uncover. So sometimes, again, a lot of us have a fire and you need to get it out. And I really recommend writing. I really, really do. It doesn't have to be some long journal thing. You can write things down in your notes app. Maybe you don't want to write it all. Listen, record a voice memo. I love how the notes app in Apple has voice memo. Then you can hear yourself out. I do think writing is the best all in all, because writing does force you to think. But again, you do you. Just get it out, because something needs to, you need to, how would I say? You need to unload these feelings. And sometimes I think it's best to do these things alone before we do it with someone else. So then with writing, I think it's great because you can read it back later when you've had time to think. You can add things later. Again, this just really helps you process. And then option D, I think, is choosing strategic silence. So I think sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is not engage. And I know probably all the alarms of like, but that's complicity. You're letting them get away with it. I don't think so. I think that silence is not agreement. It's not fear. I don't think it's weakness. I think it's recognizing that this conversation in this moment with this person probably won't be productive. Or maybe I don't know enough to have a real conversation about this. Again, we're finite. There's more we don't know than what we do know. Saving your energy for battles that actually matter and choosing not to let their opinion knock you off course and ruin your entire foundation. Because I think this is what really staying in the driver's seat of your life looks like. You decide when to engage, you decide when to keep driving. And honestly, when we can do things from a place of calmness, it always makes people take us much more seriously. So you don't slam on the brakes every time someone says something you disagree with. You assess, is this worth stopping for or do I keep moving forward? So give yourself permission because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stay silent, stay grounded. And yeah, those are your 4 options and your ways to channel that fire instead of policing people. Now, let me give you 2 more tools. So I think there's 5 tools total. We just did 3, and then tool number 3 had 4 options in it. So I want to go over 2 more, and these are for in the moment when you're deciding whether to engage or not. So tool 4, scripts for exiting moral policing mode. Sometimes you need actual language to get yourself out of the pattern. So here are some scripts. In the moment to the other person, you could say, I need some time to think about this before I respond. I hear what you're saying, but I see it differently. But I don't think now is the time for the conversation. I disagree. I'm going to step back from this one. This is to the other person, right? Because sometimes people are like, what do you think? You need to say something, and like they make you feel bad for not wanting to say something, but you don't have to say something. And then to yourself, you can say, I can feel strongly about this without needing to control how everyone else feels. My job is to live with integrity, not to police everyone's opinions. I'm choosing curiosity over certainty right now. And my favorite, I'm not a bad person for not having an opinion about something that I don't fully understand. When people ask why you're not speaking up, you can say, I'm processing this privately. I do care about this issue, but I'm not ready to engage in this way, or I'm choosing to act rather than to perform. You don't owe anyone anything. You really, really don't. And then tool number 5 is the integrity check. After the moment has passed and the conversation is over, I want you to take some time to reflect and ask yourself, did I respond from my actual convictions or from what I think I'm supposed to believe? Did I speak to genuinely engage or to win, punish, or prove something? Did my response create more understanding or just more division? Am I living with integrity or performing righteousness? Because to me, integrity means that your actions align with your values when no one is watching. Again, to me, integrity means that your actions align with your values when no one is watching. Whereas righteousness to me is performing. Guys, I forgot there's one more tool. Tool number 6. And then remembering that you're the driver. And I think this one will tie it all together. So, again, your uncle's opinion is not hijacking your steering wheel unless you let it. Because he's driving his own car, you're driving yours. And you can drive side by side because we've all driven on the highway without crashing into each other. You can disagree completely and still sit at the same table. It just means that you decide what battles matter, you choose how you respond, you control where your energy goes, you determine what you let into your car. Other people's opinions don't have to threaten your foundation unless you decide they do and you want to really look at what they said. Again, you get to choose whether their words knock you off course or help you build a better map. When someone says something again that really upsets you, you have a choice. You can react, let them take the wheel, let them control your emotions, let them determine your next move, or you can respond. Pause, assess, decide if it's yours to carry, decide if you know enough about the topic, or choose one of the 4 options we talked about, and then drive to where you want to go. I think that's what staying in the driver's seat looks like. It's not about feeling triggered and feeling on fire and just absolutely having to say something, but it's about knowing what to do with how you feel, knowing why you feel the way you do, knowing that you're still in control, knowing that your convictions are yours, your integrity is yours, and your direction is yours. So the next time someone's opinion feels threatening, remember, They're not in your car. They can't control your wheel. They can only control theirs. And you can keep on driving. All right, so let's bring this all together for our closing. You now understand why other people's opinions feel threatening because they challenge the foundation of your identity, your meaning, and your worldview. And the thing is, we carry centuries of inherited convictions inside of us. Our ancestors' fears, their devotions, their certainties, like that's all still within us. We're still connected to them. And that's why this feels so personal. But now you understand the pattern you fall into, the difference. Or, sorry, now you understand the pattern, and hopefully you understand the difference between more policing and critical thinking. And I'm very grateful for the Wild Geese podcast episode because it really helped me understand this. And again, don't control, get curious. So, hopefully, these tools really helped you and you know what to practically do when you get this feeling of threatening. And again, pause and distinguish reaction from response. Ask yourself, what's mine to carry? Choose one of my four options, which is having a real conversation or channeling into action or writing it out privately and understanding why, or just being silent. Because the truth is, the world is always going to be a little gray. We'll never have the whole picture because we're finite creatures with only our point of view. Think about just for a minute at how limited your point of view is when there are 8 billion other people with point of views as well. And that's okay because we can only be one person. And again, maybe certainty was never the destination. Maybe the work is to simply remain awake, to remain open to conversations, to dialogue, to having truth with people, to hold our conviction and our humility in the same hand. So I do want you to hold on to your convictions because those are unique to you, but I want you to choose them and examine them. And this is an ongoing process. And just making sure that they're yours because the world is wide. It's wide, and you're going to learn a lot of new things. Changing yourself and what you think, it's a part of being a human. And I think it's a part of having a healthy mentality. So I want you to listen, wonder, consider, question, trust yourself, be an individual, but also know when to pause, know what's yours to carry, know how to channel that fire into something productive instead of destructive. Because again, you don't have to police everyone's opinion to prove that you care. You don't have to perform righteousness to have integrity. You don't have to call everyone out to be a good person and stay true to yourself. You can go exist with people who see the world completely differently than you do. You can hold your convictions and let curiosity lead you. And remember to think for yourself. Again, take everything everyone says and run it by yourself. Be a thinker. I always say, don't listen to me. Think for yourself. So the next time this happens and you feel threatened, take a breath, remember these tools, and then remember that you're in control. You choose your direction. You stay grounded. You stay grounded. Guys, thanks so much for being here. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll catch you in the next one.